Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids of the Week video. Thought I would mix one of these in while I'm continuing to do your urban legends suggestion. This one is interesting because it's actually a two-parter. It seems like this cryptid not only had a version A of itself, but later on was actually turned into another version, a version B, if you will. So I'm going to do part one here involving the first incarnation of this cryptid, and then I'll save part two, which seems to have some really good details, some juicy information on it for part B. So be on the lookout for that one sometime soon. But yes, this one has to do with a creature of your nightmares. Those of you that are scared of spiders in particular, those big fat ones, the ones that have those long legs that just seem to essentially come out of a horror movie, well, you're in luck because this one here is definitely something up that alley. It has to do with this. You're looking at it now. Instantly, of course, this would be something that would put most people into a state of shock just looking at it. It's known, and it has a weird, unique name. It's known as the Yaoshikepu, which is a cryptid that apparently haunts various parts of Japan. At least part A did. Part B, it could still be out there in the sea, but if it's out there at least on land, this is its version of it. So let's go ahead, let's talk about all the information associated with this creature. So what is this Yaoshikepu? Well, essentially, you're looking at it now. In essence, it's a half human, half spider that resides somewhere there in Japan. Particularly if you go to certain parts of town called Abuta Toyora, and then another one I believe is called Hokkaido there in Japan. So those of you that live in those areas or know someone that does, unfortunately, you have in this case a known cryptid that's been around for a long time, centuries, in that location. But yes, the way the story goes with this cryptid, it's actually involved more along lines of a curse brought about essentially by a version of a god. So the story goes that there was a villager that went by there was someone that lived in that town, that Abuta Toyora, and when the person, this villager, whoever it was, somehow they might have messed up with their life, or they pissed off essentially the wrong people or the wrong spirits, because there was something that was created, in this case this Yaoshikepu, to see the destruction of his town. I don't know why exactly, but it was essentially a curse. This villager brought about this curse to himself, and the way that this curse was going to be fulfilled is, instead of destroying him, it would be destroying the town that he was at, and that was this Abuta Toyora town. So this Yaoshikepu was then unleashed, brought forth by these spirits. I think they're known as a kami, if I'm not mistaken, and whenever it was brought about, it was done to make sure that it could cause this rampant destruction throughout the town, and it did so. I mean, obviously, when you have a gigantic spider-like body mixed halfway with the human body, obviously with like the intelligence of a person, and then everything that's needed in order to create all this destruction, it did so plentifully. So much so, in fact, that apparently so many innocents were killed that the town's streets were actually filled with crimson blood. I mean, imagine something along the lines of The Shining, that famous scene where the elevator opens up and that blood starts pouring out, almost like a sea of blood, like a water rushing through, in this case like a river. That's what I imagine now is reading this information. But lo and behold, it seemed like this thing, whatever it was so good at its job, so good at what it did, that it in turn, the very same kami, the one that unleashed it in the first place to fulfill its curse, decided, you know what, maybe this is too much, because this thing, whatever it was absolutely creating too much destruction. So it in turn changed it, made it, instead of being a half human, half spider like cryptid, instead it transformed it into a half human, half octopus. Isn't that interesting? And it turned it into something called, and I hope I'm saying that right, I think it's called the Akoro Kamua. So it's basically like a giant octopus, but with a body of the octopus and then the head of a regular person, and then cast it out into the sea. So that way, this creature could no longer create the terror that it was initially given a job for in that town. It could no longer do so afterward. Instead, it roams the seas throughout those portions of Japan to this very single day. But yes, with regards back to this creature, the way it looks, interestingly enough, it seems to be depicted most along the lines of a woman's body. Like in this case, the half portion on top is of a woman, a young woman, it seems like, and then the rest of the body is of a giant spider, like that giant spider straight from Lord of the Rings. But I found that so interesting when I was reading this information, that in essence it was created as a curse, and it was brought about to bring out the destruction of a town in order to ensure that it could create as much damage to this villager, whoever this person was. I think actually the person's name was Rabunji, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody please point that out and let me know if that's correct or not. But yes, whoever this villager was, it was brought about to bring all this destruction to that town. It did so good of a job that in essence the person that hired it thought, you know what, that's not going to be a good thing. This spirit, whatever it was, this kami, thought that otherwise, and then cast it out into the sea. But yes, I'm going to do another video on that part, because there's other interesting things to talk about that there as part 2, so be on the lookout for that soon. But that's it. That's pretty much all the info associated with this creature, this Yaoshikepu. I don't know if it still roams, in this case, the lands of those towns, this Abuta Toyora, or the other town, the Hokkaido there in Japan. But if someone has more info on that, that would be really good to hear. But the only other thing that stands out is it goes by different other names too. It's known as the Yaoshikepu Kamui, which is a variation of the goddess of the spiders, and it is also known as the Ashkatane Mat, which is another version of saying the long-fingered woman. So if this creature now is 2 different versions of it, it also has several different names on its former version, part A, as well. So that was also pretty interesting to know. So, but again, if anyone has anything else to add, any other info, please post those comments below. But yes, wouldn't this just scare the bejesus out of you, seeing something like this come about? Spiders are naturally, to most people, creepy. They kind of creep me out in some parts. Obviously the smaller ones, no way, but the larger ones, and I have seen some in real life in the wild out there, I mean, those are the ones that just no thank you, I'm not having those nearby because of the poison that they might have. But others obviously keep them as pets, and then they have them roaming about the home. So it's just interesting to see how different people react to them. But imagine something like this, in this case much larger than your average car, and you'll get an idea about the fear that it could produce. So alright everybody, thanks again as always, take care.